The way we define dyslexia and the way we diagnose it is changing, and that has an impact on who's considered dyslexic and who isn't. It also determines if you receive special education or not. If you want to know more about this development, then stick around. Hey there, welcome back to the channel. In case you're new, my name is Arije. I'm a dyslexic in the field of education studies, and I'm going to go about this topic by first telling you how dyslexia traditionally has been defined, what impact that had on the way we diagnose it, and then I'm going to tell you what changes have been made. I'm going to tell you why these changes have happened, and lastly, I'm going to give you a summary of the whole thing, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's get into it. Since the mid-19th century, dyslexia has been associated with an unexpected underachievement in otherwise intelligent children. If we, for example, look at the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, we find the following statement. The learning difficulties cannot be accounted for by intellectual difficulties. This is an official part of the definition of dyslexia. Naturally, the way we define dyslexia has also influence on the way we diagnose it. And in this case, we end up with the discrepancy criteria. And that entails that we measure IQ as well as reading and writing ability. And if there is a discrepancy between these two measures that is large enough, then the child classifies for dyslexia. This creates two groups of poor readers, expected underachievers and unexpected underachievers. The expected underachievers have a low IQ and low reading and writing scores. They do not qualify for dyslexia and they do not receive any special education. If you are an unexpected underachiever, then you have low reading and writing scores, but an average or above IQ. Then you do qualify for dyslexia and you also receive special education. Especially around the year 2000, there was a lot of criticism surrounding this discrepancy criteria. And then in 2004, Congress decided to remove the mandatory use, and at that point it was up to the states to decide whether they want to use this criteria or not. This means that in some states, for the first time now, children with a low IQ and low reading and writing abilities are also going to be classified as dyslexic. The first reason has to do with the basic assumption behind the discrepancy criteria, namely that we are able to predict the reading and writing score based on the IQ. However, we know of individuals who have a very low IQ and good reading and writing scores. So that means that these two are not necessarily connected. And if that's the case, then the whole idea of an expected underachiever and an unexpected underachiever doesn't make any sense. The next argument that you tend to hear among academics has to do with the way we teach. And here they normally point to studies claiming that both groups can be taught in a similar way and both of them will benefit and they will also progress in a similar rate. So that means from a pure teaching perspective, there's no point in making two groups. Another reason why we might not want to use this criteria is because it leads to a wait to fail model. And this refers to the situation in which a child, when he or she is young, doesn't qualify because the discrepancy is not large enough. However, then they go to school and they encounter failure after failure, and then we measure again when the child is around 12. And then we see now the discrepancy is large enough, so now we start helping the child. However, by that time, a lot of the damage has already been done, and we are not as good in helping children that are older versus children that are young. Okay, so let's sum it up. Traditionally, dyslexia has been defined as an unexpected underachievement, and that led to the use of IQ when diagnosing for dyslexia. However, researchers tell us to stop doing that, and there are multiple reasons for this. I mentioned three of them. The first one being that your ability to learn to read and write does not necessarily depend on your IQ. The second reason is that regardless if you have a high IQ or a low IQ, we can teach you in a similar manner and that will be effective. And the third reason is that if we use it, And then it creates a situation in which we wait a long time. The kid experiences failure after failure till he or she finally meets the criteria to be diagnosed with dyslexia, and then we start helping them. And then the help comes too late often. Okay, so where does this leave us? Well, more people will classify as dyslexic, and this might lead to more awareness around the issues that dyslexics struggle with. On the other hand, the idea that many of us like, namely that dyslexics are in general smart people that happen to have troubles with reading and writing, that goes out of the window. This discussion has been quite heated, and I'm very interested to hear your take on it. And if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. See you in the next video.